Hi, me again, JC from Cloudwerx. I had this most fantastic interview the other day with two of our customers. I had Saksham, the Chief Data Science Officer from Allegis Group APAC, and Ben, who's the Head of Architecture and Digital at MPM Group. And yes, they, like me, are huge geeks when it comes to this new generative AI tech. One of my favorite parts of the whole interview is the bit we're about to show you, where we got to ask, okay, take the handbrake off the geek lever for a second and really think about where this technology could go. Now that you've actually used it, what's coming? Really interesting stuff. Here's the video. We're literally dealing with a new frontier model. It seems like every week, right? It's not quite, but it's getting close. And we're working with the technology all the time, the three of us. So this is officially the moment where I can kind of take the handbrake off, geeking out. Let's geek out a little bit and talk about where we see this going, because I spent a lot of time trying to convince people, hey, the time to be skeptical, I think, is over. In fact, now there's a real risk that not getting your hands dirty and playing with this, it really is starting actually to potentially be dangerous, that it's going to leave you behind while other people start to move. And one of the reasons why, I think that's a hard conversation is that just getting them enthusiastic about what we've already built is only half of what we see. What we can see is like, wait till you see what we're going to be building in 6 to 12 months time. Yeah. So both in the context of like your businesses, Ben, I'll start with you, MPM Group, but also just yourself, what excites you and what you can see being the potential applications and the direction that this is going in.
Oh, look, as mentioned, we've got such a broad range of needs and preferences for our providers and clients. What we're seeing is really being able to open the door to meet them where they want to meet us, instead of having very prescriptive methods of communication and needs being different and individualized. I think what we're seeing is the start of true personalization in service. We have these large, rich data sets, but they're all very disparate. And from what we're seeing, it's actually very simple now to link them up in some manner, but to add reasoning on top of that. It's impossible not to sit for 5 minutes and come up with 10 use cases and go, oh, actually, wouldn't it be fantastic if we could X, Y, Z?
100%.
And that's just next 6 to 12 months, as you mentioned. Longer term, true personalization, I think, is really what we're going to be seeing. It's not about removing the human element. It's about speaking to people on their level, how they want to be communicated with.
One of my favorite quotes is that it's the most human thing we've ever built, and good to see both nodding. Is that, when you have a deep appreciation of how these things are built and how they're used, you do realize like we've trained it on us. Every human on Earth has a stake in it, right? Whether we want to or not. And so used the right way, that's absolutely what I believe, is that it has this tremendous ability to connect if it's used responsibly. And obviously MPM Group in particular, you guys are very, very focused on like, what is the most effective way to do that with as many people as possible. So I've heard a few people say that. I think you're spot on that this is hyper-personalization. That's really what this is. And Saksham, I'm going to ask you, literally data scientist, good person for me to be talking to, and you've built an enormous amount of very cool kit. You're kind of like Q Division at Allegis now, whatever you're up to, 12 of these things. Where do you see this going? What excites you about what this tech is unlocking?
I think what I feel is automation is the key over here, right? You look at our internal workforce, right? You create an opportunity. Who would have thought of a job description automatically getting populated, right? You scribble handwritten notes.
I think you did. I think that's exactly right.
We know who did it. Right. And then you bring in your cute little handwritten notes, take a photo, upload it. Who would know that, all that information gets parsed into the data points, which is already available in Salesforce, creating tasks, right? And if you look at where is this going, right? What I feel is, you have the automation, but what if Agentforce can get augmented on top of that, right? And how easier would it be for the internal workforce to just write one statement that entire automation comes into action, brings all that information, be it RAG, be it classical predictive analytics, right? And this one statement powers that particular automation, gets you all that relevant information without you literally having to navigate through all the sources that you had thought of from where you would have gathered all that information manually.
Now, you're talking about a full-blown agentic user experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and well, if only Salesforce were already building a beta of a generative UI, that's going to be the hashtag of the next 12 months, is people realizing that every major provider, even the people like Google, are building generative AI, because we can just render your entire user experience as fast as Claude or GPT can write the HTML. You're saying, why even have a CRM you click on? Why not just have a CRM that goes, what can I do for you today? And it takes care of the rest. Is that right?
Absolutely.
You guys are
Absolutely.
going to build that.
And
I think you're halfway there.
and just imagine the swarms of agents.
You said my favorite word.
Yes.
Again, I didn't pay him to say that. 4 blog posts on it. You can check them out at www.cloudwerx.co. But when you say swarm, you're talking about the fact that to achieve this, you would need to have multiple, effectively headless agents from which that first interaction can then cascade.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is the actual user experience that we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
People think we're crazy, just so you know. People currently think that this is, sci-fi stuff. They think, oh, no one's going to have a swarm application. I get this all the time. They go, John, why are you talking about swarms? They were cool back in the 90s. What are the possible swarm applications? And they get it so wrong because they can't see what you're seeing, which is just like, they don't need to know it's a swarm. All they need to know is that they're now just going to a single interface and asking stuff. What we're doing is spooling up as many of these little helpers as we need, and they're doing all of those tasks for you and effectively, scalably. That's a swarm. That's like a flock of birds, right?
Absolutely.
They may not literally have to talk to the entire swarm, but that's still the architecture. It's very, very exciting, obviously, that you guys can already see. It's like, yep, so I'm going to hyper-personalize, and I'm going to start thinking about how I can just keep building these specialist agents and then hook them up together. And those two things are obviously related. You're going, in some ways, you're talking about hyper-personalization to the customer. You're talking about hyper-personalization to the user.
Yeah.
And both of those things are going to be converging at the same time. It's very, very exciting. Look, again, thank you so much for your time. The one thing, again, I want to say is that part of what's been such an honor, and it has genuinely been like the highlight of my career, to get to work in particular with you two guys and with your businesses, is that there's so much conversation right now about, understandably, fear about this technology, ethics, and how it is to be used. You guys have actually gone, you've actually done it, you learnt in early, and we're literally talking about a business that helps vulnerable Australians connect to one of the most important funding programs we've ever invented, and one of the largest organizations in the world whose sole purpose is to help people get a job. So I'm sitting here going, we are talking about two organizations here that, in addition to being, private for-profit organizations, are also organizations with tremendous public good. And the way the technology is being used is not to say, oh, now we'll fire everybody, or now we're going to addict people to things. The way the technology is being used is entirely for good. And I think this is such a critical point, is that people talk about productivity unlock. And I agree with that, right? We've been talking about productivity unlock, but people assume we automatically therefore mean some big, scary corporate decision, to crush the working class and extract a bunch of money. Where we desperately need a productivity unlock is where we are trying to help people.
Exactly.
And I think we need to talk about it more, and certainly the way Cloudwerx has been talking about it. When you hear our CEO Toby talk about it, it's more help, right? And I love the fact that two of our trailblazers, agent blazers, as I believe we're calling you, that's exactly what you guys have been doing now. And your heads are full of ideas, every one of which is just extending on that. So really genuinely thank you both. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us all today. We hope you've enjoyed it. I know I certainly have. And I can't wait to see what else you guys are going to be building with the technology.
Thank you
both.
Thank you so much.
Wow, like I said, amazing videos. If you like that, check out the entire interview because it is packed full of information that we are trying to get out to anybody who is interested in understanding generative AI, actually looking at implementing agentic AI like Agentforce in their organizations, or is just trying to get their head around all the buzzwords because we keep coming up with a new one almost every week. Check out the whole interview at www.cloudwerx.co. I know you're going to enjoy it as much as I enjoyed interviewing them, and thank you for your time.